I. The Code on I. The Code on Social Security, 2020. Arrangement of clauses. Chapter I. Preliminary clauses. 1. Short title, extent, commencement and application. 2. Definitions. 3. Registration and cancellation of an establishment. Chapter 2. Social Security Organizations. 4. Constitution of Board of Trustees of Employees Provident Fund. 5. Constitution of Employees State Insurance Corporation. 6. National Social Security Board and State Unorganized Workers Board. 7. Constitution of State Building Workers Welfare Boards. 8. Disqualification and removal of a member of any Social Security organization. 9. Procedure for transaction of business of Social Security Organization, etc. 10. Executive heads of Central Board and Corporation. 11. Supersession of Corporation, Central Board, National Social Security Board, a State Unorganized Workers Board, or the Building Workers Welfare Board. 12. State Board, Regional Boards, Local Committees, etc. 13. Entrustment of additional functions to Social Security organizations. Chapter 3. Employees Provident Fund. 14. Appointment of officers of Central Board. 15. Schemes. 16. Funds. 17. Contribution in respect of employees and contractors. 18. Fund to be recognized under Act 43 of 1961. 19. Priority of payment of contributions over other debts. 20. Chapter not to apply to certain establishment. 21. Authorizing certain employers to maintain Provident Fund accounts. 22. Transfer of accounts. 23. Appeal to Tribunal. Bill No. 121 of 2020. As introduced in Lok Sabha, E. Chapter IV. Employees State Insurance Corporation. Clauses. 24. Principal officers and other staff. 25. Employees State Insurance Fund. 26. Purposes for which Employees State Insurance Fund may be expended. 27. Holding of property, etc. 28. All employees to be insured. 29. Contributions. 30. Administrative expenses. 31. Provisions as to payment of contributions by employer, etc. 32. Benefits. 33. Corporation's power to promote measures for health, etc. of insured persons. 34. Presumption as to accident arising in course of employment. 35. Accidents happening while acting in breach of law, etc. 36. Occupational disease. 37. References to medical board. 38. Dependents benefit. 39. Medical benefit. 40. Provision of medical treatment by state government or by corporation. 41. General provisions as to benefits. 42. Corporation's rights when an employer fails to register, etc. 43. Liability of owner or occupier of factories, etc. for excessive sickness benefit. 44. Scheme for other beneficiaries. 45. Schemes for unorganized workers, gig workers and platform workers. 46. Exemption of factories or other establishments belonging to government or any local authority. 47. Contributions, etc. due to corporation to have priority over other debts. 48. Constitution of Employees Insurance Court. 49. Matters to be decided by Employees Insurance Court. 50. Powers of Employees Insurance Court. 51. Proceedings of Employees Insurance Courts. 52. Appeal to High Court. Chapter V. Gratuity. 53. Payment of gratuity. 54. Continuous service. 55. Nomination. E. 56. Determination of amount of gratuity. 57. Compulsory insurance. 58. Competent authority. Chapter V. Maternity benefit. 59. Employment of, or work by, women prohibited during certain period. 60. Right to payment of maternity benefit. 61. Continuance of payment of maternity benefit in certain cases. 62. Notice of claim for maternity benefit and payment thereof. 63. Payment of maternity benefit in case of death of a woman. 64. Payment of medical bonus. 65. Leave for miscarriage, etc. 66. Nursing breaks. 67. Creche facility. 68. Dismissal for absence during pregnancy. 69. No deduction of wages in certain cases. 70. Forfeiture of maternity benefit. 71. Duties of employer. 72. Power of inspector cum facilitator to direct payments to be made. Chapter 7. Employees' compensation. 73. Reports of fatal accidents and serious bodily injuries. 74. Employer's liability for compensation. 75. Compensation in case of death of or injury in plantation. 76. Amount of compensation. 77. Compensation to be paid when due and damages for default. 78. Method of calculating monthly wages for purposes of compensation. 79. Review. 80. Commutation of half-monthly payments. 81. Distribution of compensation. 82. Notice and claim. 83. Special provisions relating to accidents occurring outside Indian territory. 84. Medical examination. 85. Contracting. 86. Remedies of employer against stranger. 87. Insolvency of employer. Clauses, IV. 88. Power to require from employers statements regarding fatal accidents. 89. Registration of agreements. 90. Reference to competent authority. 91. Appointment of competent authority. 92. Venue of proceedings and transfer. 93. Form of application. 94. Power of competent authority to require further deposit in cases of fatal accident. 95. Powers and procedure of competent authority. 96. Appearance of parties. 97. Method of recording evidence. 98. Power to submit cases. 99. Appeal against order of competent authority. Chapter 8. Social Security and cess in respect of building and other construction workers. 100. Levy and collection of cess. 101. Interest payable on delay in payment of cess. 102. Power to exempt from cess. 103. Self-assessment of cess. 104. Penalty for non-payment of cess within the specified time. 105. Appeal to appellate authority. 106. Registration of building workers as beneficiaries. 107. Cessation as a beneficiary. 108. Building and other construction workers welfare fund and its application. Chapter IX. Social Security for unorganized workers, gig workers and platform workers. 109. Framing of schemes for unorganized workers. 110. Funding of state government schemes. 111. Record keeping. 112. Helpline, Facilitation Center, etc. For unorganized workers, gig workers and platform workers. 113. Registration of unorganized workers, gig workers and platform workers. 114. Schemes for gig workers and platform workers. Chapter X. Finance and Accounts. 115. Accounts. 116. Audit. 117. Budget estimates. 118. Annual report. Clauses V. 119. Valuation of assets and liabilities. 120. Holding of property, etc. 121. Writing off of losses. Chapter 11. Authorities, Assessment, Compliance and Recovery. 122. Appointment of inspector cum facilitators and their powers. 123. Maintenance of records, registers, returns, etc. 124. Employer not to reduce wages, etc. 125. Assessment and determination of dues from employer. 126. Appeal against order of authorized officer relating to Chapter 4. 127. Interest on amount due. 128. Power to recover damages. 129. Recovery of amount due. 130. Validity of certificate and amendment thereof. 131. Other modes of recovery. 132. Application of certain provisions of Income Tax Act. Chapter 12. Offences and penalties. 133. Penalty for failure to pay contributions, etc. 134. Enhanced punishment in certain cases after previous conviction. 135. Offences by companies. 136. Cognizance of offences. 137. Prior opportunity before prosecution. 138. Compounding of offences. Chapter 13. Employment information and monitoring. 139. Reporting of vacancies to career centers. 140. Exclusions from application of this chapter. Chapter 14. Miscellaneous. 141. Social Security Fund. 142. Application of Aadhaar. 143. Power to exempt establishment. 144. Power to defer or reduce. 145. Liability in case of transfer of establishment. 146. The members, officers and staff to be public servants. 147. Protection of action taken in good faith. 148. Misuse of benefits. Clauses v. 149. Power of central government to give directions to state government and social security organizations. 150. Power to frame schemes. 151. Protection against attachment, etc. 152. Power to amend schedule. 153. Transitional provisions. 154. Power of appropriate government to make rules. 155. Power of central government to make rules. 156. Power of state government to make rules. 157. Power of corporation to make regulations. 158. Prior publication of rules, regulations, etc. 159. Rules to give effect to arrangements with other countries for the transfer of money paid as compensation. 160. Laying of rules, regulations and schemes, etc. 161. Effect of laws and agreements inconsistent with this code. 162. Delegation of powers. 163. Power to remove difficulties. 164. Repeal and savings. The first schedule. The second schedule. The third schedule. The fourth schedule. The fifth schedule. The sixth schedule. The seventh schedule. Clauses 1. The Code on Social Security, 2020. A. Bill. To amend and consolidate the laws relating to Social Security with the goal to extend Social Security to all employees and workers either in the organized or unorganized or any other sectors and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Be it enacted by Parliament in the 71st year of the Republic of India as follows. Chapter I. Preliminary. 1. 1. This Act may be called the Code on Social Security, 2020. 2. It extends to the whole of India. 3. It shall come into force on such date as the central government may, by notification in the official gazette, appoint. and different dates may be appointed for different provisions of this code, and any reference in any such provision to the commencement of this code shall be construed as a reference to the coming into force of that provision. Short title: Extent, Commencement and Application. Bill No. 121 of 2020. As introduced in Lok Sabha. 5.10.2. 4. The applicability of the chapters specified in columns 1 and 2 of the first schedule shall, without prejudice to the applicability of the other provisions of this code, be such as is specified in corresponding entry in column 3 of that schedule. 5. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 4, where it appears to the Central Provident Fund Commissioner, whether on an application made to him by the employer of an establishment or otherwise, that the employer and majority of employees of that establishment have agreed that the provisions of Chapter 3 should be made applicable to that establishment, the Central Provident Fund Commissioner may, by notification, apply the provisions of the said chapter to that establishment on and from the date of such agreement or from any subsequent date specified in the agreement, provided that where the employer of an establishment to which the provisions of Chapter 3 applied under this subsection desires to come out of such applicability, he may make an application to the Central Provident Fund Commissioner, and the Central Provident Fund Commissioner shall, if satisfied that there is an agreement between the employer and majority of the employees to this effect, make the provisions of that chapter inapplicable to such establishment, in such manner and subject to such conditions as may be prescribed by the central government. 6. The central government may, after giving not less than 2 months' notice of its intention so to do, by notification, apply the provisions of this code to any establishment employing not less than such number of persons as may be specified in the notification. 7. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 4, where it appears to the Director General of the Corporation, whether on an application made to him by the employer of an establishment or otherwise, that the employer and majority of employees of that establishment have agreed that the provisions of Chapter 4 should be made applicable to that establishment, the Director General of the Corporation may, by notification, apply the provisions of the said chapter to that establishment on and from the date of such agreement or from any subsequent date specified in the agreement, provided that where the employer of an establishment to which the provisions of Chapter 4 applied under this subsection desires to come out of such applicability, he may make an application to the Director General of the Corporation, and Director General of the Corporation shall, if satisfied that there is an agreement between the employer and majority of the employees to this effect, make the provisions of that chapter inapplicable to such establishment, in such manner and subject to such conditions as may be prescribed by the central government. 8. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 4, an establishment to which any chapter applies at the first instance shall continue to be applied thereafter, even if the number of employees therein at any subsequent time falls below the threshold specified in the first schedule in respect of that chapter. 2. In this code, unless the context otherwise requires, 1. Agent, when used in relation to an establishment, means every person, whether appointed as such or not, who acting or purporting to act on behalf of the owner, takes part in the management, control, supervision or direction of such establishment or part thereof. 2. Aggregator, means a digital intermediary or a marketplace for a buyer or user of a service to connect with the seller or the service provider. 3. Appropriate government, means a. In relation to an establishment carried on by or under the authority of the central government or concerning any such controlled industry as may be specified by notification in this behalf, by the central government, or the establishment of railways, including metro railways, mines, oil field, major. Definitions 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 53. ports, air transport service, telecommunication, banking and insurance company or a corporation or other authority established by a central act or the central public sector undertaking or subsidiary companies set up by the central public sector undertakings, subsidiary companies set up by the principal undertakings or autonomous bodies owned or controlled by the central government, including establishment of contractors for the purposes of such establishment, corporation or other authority, central public sector undertakings, subsidiary companies or autonomous bodies or any company in which not less than 51% of the paid-up share capital is held by the central government, as the case may be, or in relation to an establishment having departments or branches in more than one state, as the case may be, the central government. And b. In relation to any other establishment, the state government. Explanation 1. For the purposes of this clause, the expression, metro railway, means the metro railway is defined in subclause I of clause 1 of section 2 of the Metro Railways, Operation and Maintenance, Act, 2002. Explanation 2. For the purposes of this clause, the central government shall continue to be the appropriate government for the central public sector undertakings even if the holding of the central government reduces to less than 50%. Equity in that public sector undertaking after the commencement of this code. 4. Audiovisual production means audiovisual produced wholly or partly in India and includes I. Animation, cartoon depiction, audiovisual advertisement. E. Digital production or any of the activities in respect of making thereof. And E. Features films, non-feature films, television, web-based serials, talk shows, reality shows and sport shows. 5. Authorized officer means such officer of the central board, or as the case may be, of the corporation notified by the central government. 6. Building or other construction work means the construction, alteration, repairs, maintenance or demolition in relation to buildings, streets, roads, railways, tramways, airfields, irrigation, drainage, embankment and navigation works, flood control works, including storm water drainage works, generation, transmission and distribution of power, water works, including channels for distribution of water, oil and gas installations, electric lines, internet towers, wireless, radio, television, telephone, telegraph and overseas communications, dams, canals, reservoirs, watercourses, tunnels, bridges, viaducts, aqueducts, pipelines, towers, cooling towers, transmission towers and such other work as may be specified in this behalf by the central government, by notification, but does not include any building or other construction work which is related to any factory or mine or any building or other construction work employing less than 10 workers or where such work is related to own residential purposes of an individual or group of individuals for their own residence and the total cost of such work does not exceed 50 lakhs rupees or such higher amount and employing more than such number of workers as may be notified by the appropriate government. 7. Building worker means a person who is employed to do any skilled, semi-skilled or unskilled, manual, technical or clerical work for hire or reward, whether the terms of such employment are express or implied, in connection with any building or other construction work, but does not include any such person who is employed mainly in a managerial or supervisory or administrative capacity. 8. Building Workers Welfare Board means the State Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Board constituted under subsection 1 of section 760 of 2002. 5. 10. 15. 20. 25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 54. 9. Career Center means any office, including employment exchange, place or portal, established and maintained in the manner prescribed by the central government for providing such career services, including registration, collection and furnishing of information, either by the keeping of registers or otherwise, manually, digitally, virtually or through any other mode, as may be prescribed by the central government, which may, inter alia, relate generally or specifically to I. Persons who seek to employ employees. E. Persons who seek employment. E. Occurrence of vacancies. And IV. Persons who seek vocational guidance and career counseling or guidance to start self-employment. 10. Central Board means the Board of Trustees of the Employees Provident Fund constituted under Section 4. 11. Central Provident Fund Commissioner means the Central Provident Fund Commissioner of the Central Board appointed under subsection 1 of Section 14. 12. Child, for the purposes of Chapter 6, includes a stillborn child. 13. Commissioning mother means a biological mother who uses her egg to create an embryo implanted in any other woman. 14. Company means a company is defined in Clause 20 of Section 2 of the Companies Act, 2013. 15. Compensation means compensation is provided under Chapter 7. 16. Competent authority means any authority appointed under Section 58 for the purposes of Chapter 5 or notified for the purposes of Chapter 6 or appointed under Section 91 for the purposes of Chapter 7, as the case may be, as competent authority by the appropriate government or the state government. 17. Completed year of service means continuous service for 12 months. 18. Confinement means labor resulting in the issue of a living child, or labor after 26 weeks of pregnancy resulting in the issue of a child whether alive or dead. 19. Contract labor means a worker who shall be deemed to be employed in or in connection with the work of an establishment when he is hired in or in connection with such work by or through a contractor, with or without the knowledge of the principal employer, and includes interstate migrant worker but does not include an employee, other than part-time employee, who is regularly employed by the contractor for any activity of his establishment and his employment is governed by mutually accepted standards of the conditions of employment, including engagement on permanent basis, and gets periodical increment in the pay, social security coverage and other welfare benefits in accordance with the law for the time being in force in such employment. 20. Contractor, in relation to an establishment means a person who, I, undertakes to produce a given result for the establishment, other than a mere supply of goods or articles of manufacture to such establishment through contract labor. Or E. Supplies contract labor for any work of the establishment as mere human resource. And includes a subcontractor. 21. Contribution means the sum of money payable by the employer, under this code, to the central board and to the corporation, as the case may be, and includes any amount payable by or on behalf of the employee in accordance with the provisions of this code. 18 of 2013. 5. 10. 15. 20. 25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 5. 22. Corporation means the employee state insurance corporation constituted under Section 5. 23. Delivery means the birth of a child. 24. Dependent means any of the following relatives of deceased employee, namely A widow, a minor legitimate or adopted son, an unmarried legitimate or adopted daughter or a widowed mother, provided that for the purposes of Chapter 4, a legitimate adopted son, who has not attained the age of 25 years, shall be dependent of the deceased employee. B. If wholly dependent on the earnings of the employee at the time of his death, a legitimate or adopted son or a daughter who has attained the age of 18 years and who is infirm. Except for the purposes of Chapter 4 wherein the word 18 occurring in the sub-clause shall be deemed to have been substituted by the word 25. C. If wholly or in part dependent on the earnings of the employee at the time of his death. I. A widower. E. A parent other than a widowed mother. E. A minor illegitimate son, an unmarried illegitimate daughter or a daughter legitimate or illegitimate or adopted if married and a minor or if widowed and a minor. IV. A minor brother or an unmarried sister or a widowed sister if a minor. B. A widowed daughter-in-law. B. A minor child of a predeceased son. B. A minor child of a predeceased daughter where no parent of the child is alive, or B. A grandparent if no parent of the employee is alive. Explanation. For the purposes of subclause B and items V and V of subclause C, references to a son, daughter or child include an adopted son, daughter or child, respectively. 25. Dock work means any work in or within the vicinity of any port in connection with, or required for, or incidental to, the loading, unloading, movement or storage of cargoes into or from ship or other vessel, port, dock, storage place or landing place, and includes I. Work in connection with the preparation of ships or other vessels for receipt or discharge of cargoes or leaving port. E. All repairing and maintenance processes connected with any hold, tank structure or lifting machinery or any other storage area on board the ship or in the docks. And E. Chipping, painting or cleaning of any hold, tank, structure or lifting machinery or any other storage area in board the ship or in the docks. 26. Employ means any person, other than an apprentice engaged under the Apprentices Act, 1961, employed on wages by an establishment, either directly or through a contractor, to do any skilled, semi-skilled or unskilled, manual, operational, supervisory, 52 of 1961. 5. 10. 15. 20. 25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 6. Managerial, administrative, technical, clerical or any other work, whether the terms of employment be express or implied, and also includes a person declared to be an employee by the appropriate government, but does not include any member of the armed forces of the Union. Provided that for the purposes of Chapter 3, except in case of the Employees' Provident Fund scheme in Chapter 4, the term employee shall mean such employee drawing wages less than or equal to the wage ceiling notified by the central government and includes such other persons or class of persons as the central government may by notification specify to be employee for the purposes of those chapters. Provided further that for the purposes of counting of employees for the coverage of an establishment under Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, as the case may be, the employees, whose wages are more than the wage ceiling so notified by the central government, shall also be taken into account. Provided also that for the purposes of Chapter 7, the term employee shall mean only such persons as specified in the second schedule and such other persons or class of persons as the central government, or as the case may be, the state government may add to the said schedule, by notification, for the purposes of that government. 27. Employer means a person who employs, whether directly or through any person, or on his behalf, or on behalf of any person, one or more employees in his establishment and where the establishment is carried on by any department of the central government or the state government, the authority specified by the head of such department, in this behalf or where no authority is so specified, the head of the department and in relation to an establishment carried on by a local authority, the chief executive of that authority, and includes a. In relation to an establishment which is a factory, the occupier of the factory. B. In relation to mine, the owner of the mine or agent or manager having requisite qualification under the law for the time being in force and appointed by the owner or agent of the mine as such. C. In relation to any other establishment, the person who, or the authority which has ultimate control over the affairs of the establishment and where the said affairs are entrusted to a manager or managing director, such manager or managing director. D. Contractor. And a. Legal representative of a deceased employer. 28. Employment injury means a personal injury to an employee, caused by accident or an occupational disease, as the case may be, arising out of and in the course of his employment. I. For the purposes of Chapter 4, if the employee is an insured or insurable employee under Section 28, whether such accident occurs or the occupational disease is contracted within or outside the territorial limits of India. And E. For the purposes of Chapter 7, whether such accident occurs or the occupational disease is contracted within or outside the territorial limits of India. 29. Establishment means a. A place where any industry, trade, business, manufacture, or occupation is carried on. Or B. A factory, motor transport undertaking, newspaper establishment, audiovisual production, building and other construction work or plantation. Or C. A mine, port or vicinity of port where dock work is carried out. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. 7. Explanation. For the purposes of Chapter 3, where an establishment consists of different departments or has branches, whether situate in the same place or in different places, all such departments or branches shall be treated as parts of the same establishment. 30. Executive officer means such officer of the appropriate government as may be notified by that government for the purposes of Chapter 13, or an officer authorized in writing by such executive officer to discharge his duties under that chapter. 31. Exempted employee, for the purposes of Chapter 3, means an employee to whom any of the schemes referred to in Section 15, but for the exemption granted under this code, would have applied, and for the purposes of Chapter 4, means an employee whose wage is specified in the notification by the central government and who is not liable to pay employees' contribution. 32. Factory means any premises including the precincts thereof. A. Whereon 10 or more employees are working, or were working on any day of the preceding 12 months, and in any part of which a manufacturing process is being carried on with the aid of power, or is ordinarily so carried on, or B. Whereon 20 or more employees are working, or were working on any day of the preceding 12 months, and in any part of which a manufacturing process is being carried on without the aid of power, or is ordinarily so carried on, but does not include a mine, or a mobile unit belonging to the armed forces of the Union, railways running shed, or a hotel, restaurant, or eating place. Explanation 1. For computing the number of employees for the purposes of this clause, all the employees in different groups and relays a day shall be taken into account. Explanation 2. For the purposes of this clause, the mere fact that an electronic data processing unit or a computer unit is installed in any premises or part thereof, shall not be construed as factory if no manufacturing process is being carried on in such premises or part thereof. 33. Family means all or any of the following relatives of an employee or an unorganized worker, as the case may be, namely A spouse, B. A minor legitimate or adopted child dependent upon the employee or an unorganized worker, as the case may be. C. A child who is wholly dependent on the earnings of the employee or an unorganized worker, as the case may be, and who is I. Receiving education, till he attains the age of 21 years. And E. An unmarried daughter. D. A child who is infirm by reason of any physical or mental abnormality or injury and is wholly dependent on the earnings of the employee or an unorganized worker, as the case may be, so long as the infirmity continues. A. Dependent parents, including father-in-law and mother-in-law of a woman employee, whose income from all sources does not exceed such income as may be prescribed by the central government. F. In case the employee or an unorganized worker, as the case may be, is unmarried and his parents are not alive, a minor brother or sister wholly dependent upon the earnings of the insured person. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 48. 34. Fixed term employment means the engagement of an employee on the basis of a written contract of employment for a fixed period, provided that A. His hours of work, wages, allowances and other benefits shall not be less than that of a permanent employee doing the same work or work of a similar nature. And B. He shall be eligible for all benefits, under any law for the time being in force, available to a permanent employee proportionately according to the period of service rendered by him, even if his period of employment does not extend to the required qualifying period of employment. 35. Gig worker means a person who performs work or participates in a work arrangement and earns from such activities outside of traditional employer-employee relationship. 36. Home-based worker means a person engaged in the production of goods or services for an employer in his home or other premises of his choice other than the workplace of the employer, for remuneration, irrespective of whether or not the employer provides the equipment, materials, or other inputs. 37. Inspector cum facilitator means an inspector cum facilitator appointed under Section 122. 38. Insured person means the insured person referred to in Section 28. 39. Insurance fund means the deposit linked insurance fund established under Clause C of subsection 1 of Section 16. 40. Insurance scheme means the deposit linked insurance scheme framed under Clause C of subsection 1 of Section 15. 41. Interstate migrant worker means a person who is employed in an establishment and who has been recruited directly by the employer or indirectly through contractor in one state for employment in such establishment situated in another state, or he has come on his own from one state and obtained employment in an establishment of another state, hereinafter called destination state, or has subsequently changed the establishment within the destination state, under an agreement or other arrangement for such employment and drawing wages not exceeding 18,000 rupees per month. A such higher amount as may be notified by the central government from time to time. 42. Manufacturing process means any process for making, altering, repairing, ornamenting, finishing, oiling, washing, cleaning, breaking up, demolishing, refining, or otherwise treating or adapting any article or substance with a view to its use, sale, transport, delivery, or disposal. Or pumping oil, water, sewage, or any other substance. Or generating, transforming, or transmitting power. Or composing, offset printing, printing by letterpress, lithography, photogravure, screen printing, 3 or 4-dimensional printing, prototyping, flexography, or other types of printing process, or book binding. Or constructing, reconstructing, repairing, refitting, finishing, or breaking up ships or vessels. Or 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 9. Preserving or storing any article in cold storage. Or such other activities as the central government may notify. 43. Maternity benefit, in respect of Chapter 6, means the payment referred to in subsection 1 of Section 60. 44. Medical practitioner means a person registered under any law for the time being in force, or any person declared by the state government, by notification, to be qualified as medical practitioner for the purposes of this code. Provided that different class or classes of medical practitioner having specific qualification may be notified by the central government for the purposes of Chapter 4 and by the appropriate government for other chapters of this code. 45. Medical termination of pregnancy means the termination of pregnancy permissible under the provisions of the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, 1971. 46. Mine shall have the meaning assigned to it in Clause J of subsection 1 of Section 2 of the Mines Act, 1952. 47. Minor means a person who has not attained the age of 18 years. 48. Miscarriage means expulsion of the contents of a pregnant uterus at any period prior to or during the 26th week of pregnancy, but does not include any miscarriage, the causing of which is punishable under the Indian Penal Code. 49. National Social Security Board means the National Social Security Board for unorganized workers constituted under subsection 1 of Section 6. 50. Notification means a notification published in the Gazette of India or the official gazette of a state, as the case may be, and the expression notify, with its grammatical variations and cognate expressions, shall be construed accordingly. 51. Occupational disease means a disease specified in the third schedule as a disease peculiar to the employment of the employee. 52. Occupier, in respect of a factory, means the person who has ultimate control over the affairs of the factory. Provided that A. In the case of a firm or other association of individuals, any one of the individual partners or members thereof. B. In the case of a company, any one of the directors, except any independent director within the meaning of subsection 6 of Section 149 of the Companies Act, 2013. C. In the case of a factory owned or controlled by the central government or any state government, or any local authority, the person or persons appointed to manage the affairs of the factory by the central government, the state government or the local authority or such other authority as may be prescribed by the central government, shall be deemed to be the occupier. Provided further that in the case of a ship which is being repaired, or on which maintenance work is being carried out, in a dry dock which is available for hire, the owner of the dock shall be deemed to be the occupier for all purposes except the matters as may be prescribed by the central government which are directly related to the condition of ship for which the owner of ship shall be deemed to be the occupier. 53. Oil field shall have the meaning assigned to it in Clause A of Section 3 of the Oil Fields, Regulation and Development Act, 1948. 34 of 1971. 35 of 1952. 45 of 1860. 18 of 2013. 53 of 1948. 5. 10. 15. 20. 25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 10. 54. Organized sector means an enterprise which is not an unorganized sector. 55. Permanent partial disablement means where the disablement is of a permanent nature, such disablement is reduces the earning capacity of an employee in every employment which he was capable of undertaking at the time of the accident resulting in the disablement. Provided that every injury specified in Part 2 of the 4th Schedule shall be deemed to result in permanent partial disablement. 56. Permanent total disablement means such disablement of a permanent nature as incapacitates an employee for all work which he was capable of performing at the time of the accident resulting in such disablement, provided that permanent total disablement shall be deemed to result from every injury specified in Part 1 of the 4th Schedule or from any combination of injuries specified in Part 2 thereof where the aggregate percentage of the loss of earning capacity, as specified in the said Part 2 against those injuries, amounts to 100%. 57. Pension fund means the pension fund established under Clause B of subsection 1 of Section 16. 58. Pension scheme means the employee's pension scheme framed under Clause B of subsection 1 of Section 15. 59. Plantation means a. Any land used or intended to be used for I. Growing tea, coffee, rubber, cinchona or cardamom which admeasures 5 hectares or more. E. Growing any other plant, which admeasures 5 hectares or more and in which 10 or more persons are employed or were employed on any day of the preceding 12 months, if, after obtaining the approval of the central government, the state government, by notification, so directs. Explanation. Where any piece of land used for growing any plant referred to in the subclause admeasures less than 5 hectares and is contiguous to any other piece of land not being so used, but capable of being so used, and both such pieces of land are under the management of the same employer, then, for the purposes of the subclause, the piece of land first mentioned shall be deemed to be a plantation, if the total area of both such pieces of land admeasures 5 hectares or more. B. Any land which the state government may, by notification, declare and which is used or intended to be used for growing any plant referred to in subclause, notwithstanding that it admeasures less than 5 hectares, provided that no such declaration shall be made in respect of such land which admeasures less than 5 hectares immediately before the commencement of this code. And C. Offices, hospitals, dispensaries, schools and any other premises used for any purpose connected with any plantation within the meaning of subclause A and subclause B, but does not include factory on the premises. 60. Platform work means a work arrangement outside of a traditional employer-employee relationship in which organizations or individuals use an online platform to access other organizations or individuals to solve specific problems or to provide specific services or any such other activities which may be notified by the central government in exchange for payment. 61. Platform worker means a person engaged in or undertaking platform work. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 11. 62. Port shall have the meaning assigned to it in Clause 4 of Section 3 of the Indian Ports Act, 1908. 63. Provident Fund means the employees' provident fund established under Clause of subsection 1 of Section 16. 64. Provident Fund Scheme means the employees' provident fund scheme framed under Clause of subsection 1 of Section 15. 65. Prescribed means prescribed by rules made under this code. 66. Railway shall have the meaning assigned to it in Clause 31 of Section 2 of the Railways Act, 1989. 67. Railway company includes any persons, whether incorporated or not, who are owners or lessees of a railway or parties to an agreement for working a railway. 68. Recovery officer means any officer of the central government, state government, central board of the corporation, who may be authorized by the central government or the state government, as the case may be, by notification, to discharge the functions and to exercise the powers of a recovery officer under this code. 69. Regulations means regulations made by the corporation under this code. 70. Retirement means termination of the service of an employee otherwise than on superannuation. 71. Sales promotion employees means the sales promotion employees is defined in Clause D of Section 2 of the Sales Promotion Employees Conditions of Service Act, 1976. 72. Schedule means a schedule to this code. 73. Seaman means any person forming part of the crew of any ship, but does not include the master of the ship. 74. Seasonal factory means a factory which is exclusively engaged in one or more of the following manufacturing processes, namely, cotton ginning, cotton or jute pressing, decortication of ground nuts, the manufacture of indigo, lac, sugar, including gur, or any manufacturing process which is incidental to or connected with any of the aforesaid processes and includes a factory which is engaged for a period not exceeding 7 months in a year in a manufacturing process as the central government may, by notification, specify. 75. Self-employed worker means any person who is not employed by an employer, but engages himself in any occupation in the unorganized sector subject to a monthly earning of an amount as may be notified by the central government or the state government, as the case may be, from time to time, or holds cultivable land subject to such selling as may be notified by the state government. 76. Shop, in respect of a state, means a shop as defined in any law for the time being in force dealing with the shop in that state. 77. Sickness means a condition which requires medical treatment and attendance and necessitates abstention from work on medical ground. 78. Social security means the measures of protection afforded to employees, unorganized workers, gig workers, and platform workers to ensure access to healthcare and to provide income security, particularly in cases of old age, unemployment, sickness, invalidity, work injury, maternity, or loss of a breadwinner by means of rights conferred on them and schemes framed under this code. 15 of 1908. 24 of 1989. 11 of 1976. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 12. 79. Social Security Organization means any of the following organizations established under this code, namely, the Central Board of Trustees of Employees Provident Fund constituted under Section 4. B. The Employee State Insurance Corporation constituted under Section 5. C. The National Social Security Board for Unorganized Workers constituted under Section 6. D. The State Unorganized Workers Social Security Board constituted under Section 6. A. The State Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Boards constituted under Section 7. And F. Any other organization or special purpose vehicle declared to be the Social Security organization by the central government. 80. State government includes A. In relation to a union territory with legislature, the government of the union territory. And B. In relation to a union territory without legislature, the administrator appointed under Article 239 of the Constitution is an administrator thereof. 81. State Unorganized Workers Board means the State Unorganized Workers Social Security Board constituted under subsection 9 of Section 6. 82. Superannuation, in relation to an employee, means the attainment by the employee of such age as is fixed in the contract or conditions of service, as the age on the attainment of which the employee shall vacate the employment. Provided that for the purposes of Chapter 3, the age of superannuation shall be 58 years. 83. Temporary disablement means a condition resulting from an employment injury which requires medical treatment and renders an employee, as a result of such injury, temporarily incapable of doing the work which he was doing prior to or at the time of the injury. 84. Tribunal means the industrial tribunal constituted by the appropriate government under Section 7A of the Industrial Disputes Act, 1947. 85. Unorganized sector means an enterprise owned by individuals or self-employed workers and engaged in the production or sale of goods or providing service of any kind whatsoever, and where the enterprise employs workers, the number of such workers is less than 10. 86. Unorganized worker means a home-based worker, self-employed worker or a wage worker in the unorganized sector and includes a worker in the organized sector who is not covered by the Industrial Disputes Act, 1947 or Chapters 3 to 7 of this Code. 87. Vacancy, for the purposes of Chapter 13, means an unoccupied post, including newly created post, post of trainee, post to be filled through apprentice or any unoccupied post created in an establishment by any other means, in a cadre or occupation for the purpose of employing a person and carrying remuneration. 88. Wages means all remuneration, whether by way of salaries, allowances or otherwise, expressed in terms of money or capable of being so expressed which would, if the terms of employment, express or implied, were fulfilled, be payable to a person employed in respect of his employment or of work done in such employment, and includes a basic pay. 14 of 1947. 14 of 1947. 5. 10. 15. 20. 25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 13. B. Dearness allowance. And C. Retaining allowance, if any, but does not include any bonus payable under any law for the time being in force, which does not form part of the remuneration payable under the terms of employment. B. The value of any house accommodation, or of the supply of light, water, medical attendance or other amenity or of any service excluded from the computation of wages by a general or special order of the appropriate government. C. Any contribution paid by the employer to any pension or provident fund, and the interest which may have accrued thereon. D. Any conveyance allowance or the value of any traveling concession. A. Any sum paid to the employed person to defray special expenses entailed on him by the nature of his employment. F. House rent allowance. G. Remuneration payable under any award or settlement between the parties or order of a court or tribunal. H. Any overtime allowance. I. Any commission payable to the employee. J. Any gratuity payable on the termination of employment. K. Any retrenchment compensation or other retirement benefit payable to the employee or any ex gratia payment made to him on the termination of employment, under any law for the time being in force, provided that for calculating the wages under this clause, if payments made by the employer to the employee under sub-clauses I exceeds 1/2, or such other %, as may be notified by the central government, of the all remuneration calculated under this clause, the amount which exceeds such 1/2, or the percent so notified, shall be deemed as remuneration and shall be accordingly added in wages under this clause, provided further that for the purpose of equal wages to all genders and for the purpose of payment of wages, the emoluments specified in subclauses D, F, G, and H shall be taken for computation of wage. Explanation. Where an employee is given in lieu of the whole or part of the wages payable to him, any remuneration in kind by his employer, the value of such remuneration in kind which does not exceed 15% of the total wages payable to him, shall be deemed to form part of the wages of such employee. 89. Wage ceiling means such amount of wages as may be notified by the central government, for the purposes of becoming a member under Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. 90. Wage worker means a person employed for remuneration in the unorganized sector, directly by an employer or through any contractor, irrespective of place of work, whether exclusively for one employer or for one or more employers, whether in cash or in kind, whether as a home-based worker, or as a temporary or casual worker, or as a migrant worker, or workers employed by households including domestic workers, with a monthly wage of an amount as may be notified by the central government and the state government, as the case may be. 91. Woman means a woman employed, whether directly or through any contractor, for wages in any establishment, provided that for the purposes of Chapter 4, a woman who is or was an employee in respect of whom contribution is or were payable under the said chapter and who is by 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 14. Reason thereof, entitled to any of the benefits provided under the said chapter shall be called insured woman, and shall include a commissioning mother who as biological mother wishes to have a child and prefers to get embryo implanted in any other woman. A woman who legally adopts a child of up to 3 months of age. 3. 1. Every establishment to which this code applies shall be electronically or otherwise registered within such time and in such manner as may